Welcome back, Rage Nation. In this video, I'm going to give you 10 reasons why you should be playing Malifaux. In this video series, we're going to put out different videos on different topics that general wargamers would be interested in, Malifaux topics you'd be interested in, thoughts that we have, and share them in video format that people will like and listen to and watch. So enjoy this episode. If you want to support the podcast, you can check us out at patreon.com/RageQuitWire. You can also subscribe and like the YouTube channel. Check us out on Twitter. Check us out on Instagram. And then we also have Discord. The first reason you should be playing Malifaux are the models. The models are the first thing that I think whenever somebody looks at the game of Malifaux, most people can realize that they are gorgeous models, look amazing. So if you're interested in aesthetics like Cowboys Western style, monsters, fantasy, Cthulhu, kind of shadow monsters, if you're interested in Victorian steampunk kind of looking, if you're interested in hunters, there's a lot of different aesthetics in the game that really appeal to a lot of people. Things like zombies. Everybody loves zombies eating brains. There are so much different aesthetics and these models that'll speak to almost any type of tabletop and fantasy or even future-based player. They even have things besides like steampunk and zombies. They also have ninjas. So you have this huge conglomeration of different types of models that not only speak to individual players, but look beautiful on the table. So look at the models. The models will drive you to a faction or crew probably, and then enjoy the game. The second reason you should be playing Malifaux is the cost. Looking at a lot of tabletop games, especially looking at you, GW, Games Workshop, looking at you, War Machine, Privateer Press, those games are expensive. I played those games for a long time, spent thousands of dollars playing things like Tyranids, Orcs and Goblins, playing Orcs, playing Skaven. There's lots of different factions that cost you thousands of dollars to play. Even Space Marines, all those vehicles you got to bring, super expensive. Malifaux's different. Malifaux, the cost is so low, it's easy to get into. You can get into a game by a full crew, play in a 50 soulstone tournament, or just play at your store 50 soulstones for sometimes less than $100. All you need is the core box for the master and crew that you're going to run, and then usually one or two other boxes. A starter box for a crew costs somewhere around $50 to $60, and then those other boxes you can pick up for $20 to $30 usually to kind of add to your crew. Now, of course, like any war game, if you get into a faction hard, if you go in deep to the paint, you're going to find that it's going to be super expensive. Anyways, it's just not going to be nearly as expensive as 40K. When I first got into the game, I got into Outcasts, and I think I got into them for roughly about $300. Got me most of the masters, which you're going to see in the next thing, that there are a lot of masters and factions that you can use. So getting a whole faction for $300 is a steal. Whereas if I was going to get the whole army for, let's say, Black Templars, I'd probably be into that at least $1,500, especially since they're the new hotness. And then if I'm going to be competitive in 40K, I'm going to have to keep up, buy the new hot faction, and it's just going to be just spending so much money. So Malifaux's great, cheap investment, and really awesome to play, as we're going to find out. The third reason you should be playing Malifaux is alternating activations. Now, if you played Warhammer or you played War Machine, you will know that I get to do my whole turn, then you do your whole turn. There's no interaction besides trying to make your models not die. So armor saves by rolling dice, trying to mitigate damage maybe with abilities. But as far as activating, one player goes their whole turn, next player goes their whole turn. This results in things like assassination runs in War Machine. This results in things like your whole army getting obliterated by a gun line. We've all been there if you play those games. Malifaux, that doesn't happen. You have alternating activations, which I find great in games. I was introduced to that in Guild Ball, which it was a beautiful system. Malifaux does something very similar, where I activated a model, my opponent activates a model. After that, we just go back and forth. Once there's no more activations, the turn is done. So this allows me to see what my opponent's doing, and I can then do things to either prevent them from maybe killing my master or prevent them from scoring a scheme that I think they're trying to do. So this allows for more balanced gameplay and more interesting game. Malifaux is a very in-depth game. There are 8 different factions. So this allows you to pick a faction that you are interested in, that aesthetically speaks to you, has a cool background, models are sweet, and play styles, while they can be similar, there's a lot of differences in play styles. So there are 8 factions. Those factions include, of course, the Bayou. These are your greenskins, the gremlins. They're really interesting in Malifaux because they are interested by humans that have come to Malifaux, and they actually do a lot of impersonating. So you'll see a lot of their masters and crews that look a little similar to these other factions, but they're just do it in their own weird gremlin way. So if you like greenskins and other game systems, you'll probably be somewhat attracted to this. They do have some really goofy and cheeky abilities, so just keep in mind that that's always a great faction to get into. Next faction you might be interested in are the Arcanists. Arcanists are kind of like the terrorists of Malifaux. They're the ones that are constantly fighting with the rules. They're the ones that are trying to kind of upend the system. They definitely have an interesting place in the Malifaux world. They have a lot of setting the world on fire abilities. You look at a model like Karis, who's just lighting the board on fire. You have cool crossover masters like Hoffman, who uses constructs and robots. So it can definitely be a very interesting crew and faction to get into. Lots of cool things. I think my favorite crew with that one is Colette. She kind of has these like showgirls and these marionette showgirl puppets that she uses to really scheme and get around the board. And the models are beautiful for that crew. Speaking of people that live in Malifaux, the Neverborn, those are like your natives of Malifaux. These are the monsters that kind of hide in the shadows. The Dreamer, who is a boy who dreams on Earthside, but the dreams are happening in Malifaux. So he's asleep Earthside, dreaming in Malifaux, and he has all these monsters that he kind of uses to play games in Malifaux, and it's terrifying for other people. This is a really cool crew if you like Cthulhu, monsters, just a really cool faction. Another faction that might interest you is the Guild. This is kind of your law and order, but they're not necessarily the good guys. The Guild is the one that, it's a faction that tries to keep order in Malifaux, but they're also corrupt. They're trying to use their power for gains. They're trying to use their power to, get money like anybody else. So this isn't necessarily your good guy faction. This is the faction that keeps the law, but not always in the best way. Probably my favorite crew for Guild would be actually Perdita and the family, the Ortegas. They're a pretty cool crew. They do a lot of gunslinging. They hunt Nephilim, so Nephilim are the never-born creatures that are like these big flying demon things. So they have a lot of cool abilities. They have a lot of cool stories where Perdita is basically hunting Nephilim and her family's just trying to keep the world of Malifaux balanced and safe from these monsters. One of the new factions are the Explorers Society. So the Explorers Society are kind of unique and interesting. They are almost like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So you can picture from the movie, if you've seen that, Sean Connery kind of leading the gang. You have cool hunters like Cooper. They go ahead and hunt these huge monsters and explore Malifaux to see what kind of trophies they can get. You have Jedza, who's pretty much seeking everlasting life, trying to keep her undead corpse alive. So she's always interesting. You have Lucas McCabe, who's kind of like Indiana Jones, hunting relics. A lot of cool things in this faction. A lot of different play styles, a lot of different motives when you look at the different masters for these crews. So Explorer Society is definitely new and exciting. A lot of people like them. The models are amazing for a lot of them. EVS is kind of the steampunk robotic crew. So if you have any interest in any of those, Explorers might be the way for you to go. We also have Outcasts. So Outcasts are kind of like your mix mash of different masters. They have a lot of different styles. You have these kind of have these fast mercenary forces with the Victorias, who definitely have an interesting play style. You have Hamlin, who's this Pied Piper who uses rats to kind of gain what he wants to do in the world of Malifaux. You also have a cool Gremlin crossover with Zip. He's a pirate or wannabe pirate that basically stole a guild dirigible So you can use a little bit of the goofiness there. You also have Von Schill, who basically has this steampunk military force that he uses to kind of get the gains in what he wants in the faction. So definitely an interesting crew. Outcast have a lot of different play styles, a lot of different types of looking faction, or not factions, have a lot of different looking crews that are really interesting for people, and definitely something that a lot of people like. They like the outcast ragtag kind of mishmash, kind of put together faction. If you like ninjas, you'll like Ten Thunders. Ten Thunders are kind of the Oriental, the ninja faction, samurais, mythology that you would see in Asia. It's definitely prevalent in Malifaux as well. So looking at that, you have a lot of really amazing sculpts. If you love the samurai armor, if you like the Oriental kind of demons that you would see in a lot of that mythology, you get that a lot in this faction. So you'll see the samurai you'll see the samurai or ninjas in the Last Blossom keyword. You'll see a lot of different you'll see even like geishas. You'll see a lot of different representation. You'll see a lot of different representation when it comes to different Oriental themes, and it's a really beautiful keyword. I think especially if you're a strong painter and you really love gorgeous looking models with like long flowing gowns, or these really prominent features on a lot of these models, you can really do some beautiful things with these models, especially when it comes to the geishas, when it comes to that keyword. It definitely, you can create some beautiful looking models. I know I painted Hinamatsu in that faction, and Hinamatsu is a gorgeous looking model. The last one that we have is the Resurrectionists. These are the people that like to mess with the undead. So this is the faction that works with reanimating. This is the faction that puts corpses kind of back together, works with the undead spirits. There's even a model where there's a living head. I think it's Philip and the nanny. So it has this undead nanny just pushing Philip's head around in a carriage. So like a baby carriage. It's a really creepy model, but kind of cool. So there's a lot of cool features in this. If you like the Cricks, or if you like other undead factions and games, this might be the one that you're kind of drawn to. Definitely some cool summoners. You even have Seamus, who is kind of like this back alley killer who can do some really interesting things, has a huge gun that does a crap ton of damage. So a lot of fun things in the Resurrectionist that if you like reanimating undead, kind of zombie looking models, this is a really cool faction for you. Lots of beautiful models that you can really do some cool things with as far as making undead armies. Each of these factions has 8 masters, so that's 8 masters that you can really mix your play style with. There's some masters, like I play Bayou, there's some masters that I don't like playing as much as the others. For example, I'm not a big Somer fan. I don't play Somer's keyword a lot. There's a lot going on there. Whereas I'm a big Zip person, I'm a big Maw Tucket fan, just because that's kind of fits my play style, and I love the models in those factions, in those keywords. So keep that in mind when you do this. I would float towards a faction that you like aesthetically, and then I would go towards a faction and models and keyword that you like how it plays, but you also are interested in what it looks like. The 5th reason you should be playing Malifaux is because of the new title system that we have for masters. So like I just said, there are 8 different masters in each faction. Well, now there is a title for each master. So that means now there are essentially 16 different masters you could pick from. So if I don't like the way that Maw Tucket plays for Bayou, I can then pick her second version, which is Mecha Meemaw. And she plays very differently than Maw 1 would play. So it's almost like if you played War Machine, this is very similar to if you brought a new version of a master. So if I was playing the Butcher, I could either play Butcher 1, 2, or 3. This is very similar, except for there's only 2 versions, but everybody has a version. So this is creating a very new, energized kind of addition to the game that's going to really... I've been playing with a lot of these new titles, and it's made the game very interesting. A lot of them are very powerful, so this makes crews that used to kind of suck now pretty good. So it makes models that were terrible, now pretty decent. For example, the new Perdita for Guild, she has Pistoleros that she can summon. I didn't even know Pistoleros were a model in the game, but now they're usable and they do some really cool things. So really awesome to see in the game that Weird has now put in. Sixth reason you should be playing Malifaux is the schemes and strategies. Schemes and strategies are what make this game way more interesting than most games I have played. It makes it where you can play the same game with the same masters versus the same opponent, but if you switch the scheme pool where the strats and schemes are different, then it's going to be a completely different game. So you can score up to 8 points in a game of Malifaux. There are 5 turns. You can score on turn 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, each turn you can score once for the strategy. So you can get up to 4 strategy points. The strategy might be things like moving an objective into your enemy's deployment zone, or not deployment zone, but their half of the board. It could be killing models. It could be moving to a certain area of the board. There's a lot of different strategies that Weird can change from year to year that makes the game more interesting. You also score 4 points for the 2 schemes that you select. Each game you'll have up to 5 schemes that you can pick from, and you secretly pick them. So your opponent doesn't even know which 2 you pick. You're going to score once when you reveal the scheme, and you're going to score once at the end of the game for each scheme that you achieve. So these schemes are really interesting. Some of them are kill-based. I know Assassinate is a popular one. Can you get the master halfway down, and then can you kill them by the end of the game? If you do, you get 2 points. There's also things like Claim Jump, which is the selected model you have. Are they in the center of the board? Nobody around them? Cool, you get a point. Is that happening at the end of the game? Cool, you get another point. So there's positional ways to win the game. There's kill-based ways to win the game. And then there's just conditions that you meet. So do I have markers in a certain area of the board? Okay, well, you get a point for that. So marker-based win conditions, kill-based win conditions, and then sitting at certain points of the board conditions make for a way more interesting game than, can I kill all your important stuff? Yes, I win. Okay, Malifaux is way more interesting than that, with an 8-point way to win the game, and you can choose. And really, there's been games where I don't even have to engage with my opponent. I can just stall them off and get my points. And that can be very interesting to some people. There's also, if you're a more aggressive player, you can pick all the ways where it's like, I just want to hit you in the face. Just realize, bad things happen, you might not be able to get it. The 7th reason you should be playing Malifaux is the terrain. Now, if you've been to a Malifaux event, I think one of the things you'll notice is that the terrain is gorgeous on the table. People really go overboard with their cool themes. Like I said, Malifaux is kind of based in the 18 to 1900s, which is this cool Victorian, almost like Gilded Age kind of theme. A little bit steampunk, you know, so really some cool things. This allows, for example, in the last tournament I went to, there was like a carnival theme board where it had an actual Ferris wheel, and it had, you know, some of the things, tents you would see at a carnival. Now, in other games, this can make the game actually kind of hard to play, but in Malifaux, they have rules that make it really easy to engage with these types of terrains. You can define the terrain by height, you can define whether it's going to be hazardous, severe, concealing. All this stuff allows you to define the terrain where you can still engage and go through it, over it, shoot around it, blocking, whatever. So it makes it where the terrain's not only gorgeous, but it's actually usable for in-game as well. You can even destroy terrain in Malifaux. You can use different abilities, or you can just walk up and destroy it. So that's also something that's very interesting in the game and looks gorgeous and just makes the game really flavorful and awesome to play. The 8th reason you should be playing Malifaux is the Fate deck. Now, I'm sorry, once you play the Fate deck, you might not go back to playing with dice again. A game that uses dice, now that I play, has to be really balanced, or I have to just not care and just have fun enjoying the game. It's hard to go back to a dice game after playing Malifaux. The Fate deck is just a card deck, just anything you would use playing poker, and you use a black joker and a red joker. So looking at the deck, you have minors, moderates, and severes, and this is what you use to determine what happens on the board. So for example, if I attack my opponent, we both flip a card, and whoever wins the duel, the thing happens. If you lose the duel, the thing doesn't happen. And there's different modifiers that you can use in the game to help and prevent different flips. So the best thing about this though, if you've ever rage quit because you got a bad dice roll and it just pissed you off so bad, Malifaux might be the game for you. Because looking at these dice, you could roll, if I had a squad of Terminators, I roll a bunch of snake eyes, my Terminators could die to, orcs just throwing little bottles at me. It sucks. I've been there. It happens. Oh wait, I have an invuln save. I failed the invuln save too. Oh god, I'm so mad. But in Malifaux, if there's something important that I want to happen, you have 6 cards in your hand, maybe 7, depending on different masters. But you can use a card out of your hand to make something happen. It's called cheating. So cheating is allowed in this game. So you want to use your cards wisely, but the important things you can cheat to either prevent or cheat to make sure it goes off. And that definitely helps when it comes to the feel bads of getting, effed by the dice. Now keep in mind, the Black Joker, you can't cheat when that thing's flipped. So that's a 0. When you flip that, bad things happen. You're not going to be able to get away from it. But if you flip the Red Joker, good things happen, and hopefully your opponent dies a lot. The 9th reason you should be playing Malifaux is it's a relatively balanced game. Now, nobody likes a game that is unbalanced and there's OP factions and the new hotness is always better than the old stuff. Weird does a good job of balancing that out. They do an errata every 6 months usually, so twice a year, where they try to bring some models up and maybe bring some of the busted stuff down. They also do a new Gaining Grounds each year, roughly, where they change the strats and schemes. And this is actually a big deal because if they go to a more scheme focused, where it's like scheme markers all over the place type of strategies and schemes, that can make some masters like maybe Lucius out of the guild really powerful, or Nelly out of the guild really powerful. However, if they go more kill based and more sustained, they're going to know that models that are harder to kill will be better during that. So keep in mind that they balance rule wise, but they also balance it by making the way you can win the game different each season. So Weird does a good job of balancing that. That way we see new masters and new models really do well each season, and it makes the game way more interesting. So I'd say it's not quite as balanced as Guild Ball was, because that game was tight, but this game is really balanced, especially when you compare it to games like War Machine and Warhammer. Finally, the last reason you should be playing Malifaux is the keyword system. The keyword system, every crew has a keyword that relates to the master that they are with. This keyword system allows abilities and synergies to happen within the crew. So this could allow your crew to draw cards. This could allow your crew to get plus to its stats. This could allow your crew to drop markers out of activation. There's a lot of different things you can do with your keyword synergies. This almost makes it worth keeping mostly in your keyword. Now that doesn't mean that you can't. You can definitely hire versatile models, which are kind of like, these are models everybody can bring in your faction, or you can hire out of keyword. This means that you can hire stuff from a different keyword. It's just going to cost you an extra soul stone. So instead of maybe being a 6 stone model, it's going to be 7 stones, which sometimes makes or breaks whether you want to bring that model with a certain master. So this system that Weird has gone to really encourages you to stay in keyword, and the synergies that you get, honestly, most of the time, make it worth staying there. So this prevents a lot of the busted stuff that I know people have told me about the 1st and 2nd edition of Malifaux. It seems a lot more balanced and a lot more organized to fit what the keyword wants to do around your master. So there you have it. That's Rage Quit Wire's top 10 reasons why you should be playing Malifaux. What did we miss? What do you guys think is a good reason why people should be playing Malifaux? What do you love about the game? What questions do you have about the game if you're a newer player? Go ahead and leave some comments. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. Definitely planning on putting more of these videos out. And until next time, make sure that you guys flip cards, flip tables. See y'all next time.